Hello and welcome to the By Intent channel and podcast with me, Raki. Our guest today is someone who is pretty fabulous and cool. It's Dom Ceja, aka Nomadic Juicer. And Dom is going to teach us all about juicing today, how to do it, why it's good for us, all the little details, because juicing is definitely a mystery to me personally. So really looking forward to learning from Dom. But Dom's also got an incredible story. He's got an incredible backstory. And I will let Dom tell you all about that, in today's interview. But I will share that, think about or imagine a man who is a university student athlete in the USA. He becomes vegan by 2012, and right now he is a juicing and regenerative detoxification expert. I hope I said that correctly. Completely different lifestyle, and he's living out in the mountains in Armenia right now. So you can imagine there's quite a story to all of that, and Dom is going to tell us all about that today. So Dom, a very, very warm welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I look forward to talking with you today and kind of sharing the wisdom of juicing and a little bit of my backstory as well. So I look forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Dom. And I think let's start right there. Tell us a little bit about your story. I think it's very empowering. It's fascinating. So we'd love to hear more.
Yeah, definitely. Not a problem. So I'll kind of start from university standpoint. So I was in university studying business, playing collegiate athletics at the time. I suffered a pretty bad leg injury. I broke my leg in half in 2010. And that's kind of when a lot of the shifts that are really manifested right now kind of started to take place. I really started to look at health differently, how I treat my body, what I'm putting in my body, just become a lot more conscious of how I move about on a day-to-day basis. So graduated university. I went back to my hometown to find employment, working as an IT developer. And then over time started to really, I was always looking for that next edge. I was always looking for how do I optimize and kind of feed the body what it really needs. And so in 2012, through my aunt, who's been a vegan for about 30 years now, she kind of introduced me to some information and some different documentaries, just people to look up. She never pushed it on me. She just said, hey, just take a look at this if you're interested. So I started to do a little bit of the research and started to kind of really understand what's going on. And the light bulb just went off for me that I needed to make a change. So I went vegan in 2012. I was kind of one of those crazy people that kind of just jumped into it, cold turkey. So it's, I don't recommend that for everybody, but if you have the mindset and kind of the willpower, it's definitely worth it. In 2014, so the nomadic part kind of comes in a couple years later. One of my cousins actually dragged me. It's just funny. So I never really was a big traveler, but my cousin kind of dragged me into going to Peru for the first time to go see Machu Picchu. And I ended up going, and that's kind of like when my travel bug hit me. It was just like, I just felt this sense of energy and this sense of almost like finding who I really am, like starting to find my identity. I started to realize okay, like I'm out of my natural surrounding. I'm in a completely different part of the world. There was just there was an energy about that. And it's really hard to explain that energy, but a lot of people who travel really feel it. So that was 2014. So I kind of started to say, okay, I kind of like this. And, let me try to do it again. And so I was looking for people to go with me. I actually went to India in 2015. And I was looking for individuals to go with me and nobody wanted to go. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go by myself. And India, for anybody who's been, India is definitely it's a hard country to go by yourself. It's not an easy place to visit. Yeah. But that really taught a lot about myself. I really started to see, who I was as an individual. I really started to get confident in myself because I was always, I'm kind of a shy person. And so I wasn't always the most self-confident. But when you start to get out on your own and you're in a foreign country and you don't know anybody, it really kind of snaps you forward into being in the present moment and to really learning how to articulate yourself and learning how to speak up for yourself and make those split-second decisions. And so I really started to just kind of really enjoy that. And so as the years kind of progressed, I just kind of traveled more and more. And I had a job that allowed me to travel. So I went to China next. I went to Japan, Vietnam, Cuba, Thailand, all throughout Europe. And I really started just kind of get I just really enjoyed it. And so then in 2018, I found a random ticket to Armenia. And then I ended up coming out here, I like off the beaten path countries. I enjoy, kind of going where, a lot of travelers don't go because, the big Europe backpacking, that's, very common amongst my age. And so I was like, I want to do things differently. That's kind of my nature. So I was like, let me go to Armenia. And when I got here, I felt connected. I felt connected that I've never felt in any other country. I felt just at peace. I felt this sense of like belonging. And for anybody who's been to Armenia or is Armenian, you'll know that the Armenians are very close. It's a very tight-knit community. So you're almost like, I was like welcomed in like family. That's really what I really felt like. It's like a big family here. And then when it comes back to the juicing, to kind of bring it full circle, when I got to Armenia, just the quality and the taste of their fruits and vegetables was just superior to anything I've ever tasted in my life. Because Armenia is a very agricultural based economy. And so most of their fruits and vegetables are grown locally. And some of like the oldest, fruits in the world, like grapes and pomegranates and cantaloupes, all kind of come to this region of the world. And so you could just taste the freshness. You could just taste the quality. And I got hooked. I was like, I really want to come back and if I were to leave the US, I want to live here. And so kind of long story short, in 2018, I decided to leave the US. I just felt like I needed to get out. I felt like if I did not, follow my heart and go live overseas for a little bit, that I was going to regret the rest of my life. And I feel like that was a big pivotal moment in my life because, we all have this inner voice and, a lot of times we drown it out because we listen to our parents, we listen to, significant others, brothers and sisters, or people we work with. And we kind of just fall in line with, what everybody else is doing. And doing this was very radical and it was very different than what, a typical, someone from the US is supposed to do, working 9 to 5 and, kind of live your life by a house and, kind of do the everyday thing. And so it was really a radical shift from what the norm was. But something inside of me was just burning so deep that I just couldn't ignore it. And I'm happy that I did it. I'm so happy that I pulled the trigger. I have no regrets about it. The amount of self-growth that I've seen over the last 2 years since I left has been more growth than I've had in the last 10 years being in America. And there's no knock to America. It's just that I just need to fulfill what my inner voice was telling me. And so that's really the beauty of kind of the story and, where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And it is empowering and it's so interesting. As we've spoken before and how I came from South Africa to the US.
Right,
and,
right.
And the irony is kind of the same thing for me here is I feel like it's forced me to level up, so
Right.
I can totally relate. It's I think it's just changing our experiences sometimes. It's that cognitive shock maybe.
I
that
agree.
wakes us up. So that's incredible. And tell us a little bit about your lifestyle though, the juicing lifestyle. What is it right now for you? Are you on a raw diet? What demystify this world for us?
Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of mystery around juicing. So from my standpoint, right now I was a vegan for about 2019 to last year. Then I really started to dive deeper. So let me take a step back. I've been juicing since 2017. I watched a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead by Joe Cross. It's one of the kind of popular juicing documentaries out there. That kind of helped me just really make a decision and me pull the trigger on juicing. But I was still, at that time, I was still vegan. And just because my body just couldn't handle meat. That was more of a personal decision. And then the juicing kind of came on top of it because the juicing really just provided that extra edge that I was looking for, that getting the nutrients in without having to deal with all the sluggishness of breaking down food and having those digestive pains. And because I always had stomach pains, that was my biggest issue growing up. I always had stomach issues, IBS, just always gassy, always, constipated, and, having headaches from that. And so I was always looking for a solution. And so juicing kind of came into my life. So juicing doesn't pertain, you can eat any lifestyle that you want with juicing. I have recommendations of how you should go about it, but juicing is kind of different than what you're eating. Juicing is more of like a supplementation. And I look at it as it's a way to make sure that you're always getting in kind of that full range of vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients that a lot of times we just kind of miss, especially like in the standard American diet and in our everyday diet, because, to put 2 heads of celery, a head of lettuce, 3 cucumbers and a stalk of parsley, it would be hard to eat that, on a daily basis, but throwing that into a juicer and drinking, 24 ounces of that or a liter of that a day, it's a lot easier to handle, but you're getting so much nutritional benefit out of that. And that way you're just making sure you're meeting all your kind of your daily nutritional needs as far as, amino acids and the different vitamins and the different minerals that the body needs, the calcium, the potassium, the magnesium. And so it doesn't necessarily, I always recommend that no matter what your dietary lifestyle is, I think that it would be beneficial for each and every person to always try to incorporate at least 1 liter of juice. It could be fruit or green juice in their day. And I prefer in the morning just because that's when your body is most accepting. It kind of helps flush out what you ate the day before and gets the lymphatic system moving. And so that's kind of, that might be a short answer, but I can kind of dive a little bit deeper into that.
Thank you. And that helps. I think, it's confusing often, right? It's kind of like, okay, well, if I'm only juicing, can I not eat other things? But, what I'm hearing from you, it's more about, it can be an addition. It doesn't have to be that's the pure choice and, you juice and kind of survive off that, or just a raw diet that you can actually, it's something we'll dig into in the conversation. But I think that's so informative, because I think that's one of the myths that is out there, that people are like, oh no, I can only live on that. But I don't think the expectation is if it doesn't work for you, right?
Precisely. And I think it's more about experimenting. And I kind of say that juicing it's part art and it's part science. And that science is, obviously understanding the biochemistry of the body, understanding kind of the botany of the plants or the fruits and the vegetables in this case, a little bit of the anatomy and physiology of how the body reacts to certain foods, be it juice or be it what you're eating. And a little bit of chemistry. And then the art side kind of comes in because everybody has different palates. And your taste, and a lot of times people's taste buds, they're different because of just the food that we eat. And obviously, as you kind of work your way up the ladder, I kind of call it eliminating the meat, eliminating the dairy, your palate begins to change and it begins to just get more refined. And so the art kind of comes into, you find what juices work for you. Because I think a lot of sometimes some of the juices that I drink now, I think a lot of people who are starting wouldn't be able to drink them. And I had the same issue. I had the same kind of revelation when I first started. I used to look at my mentors and my gurus. I'm like, how are you drinking these green juices with no apples or no fruit or no sweetener? But I've gotten to the point now where I can drink a green juice with just the greens and no type of sweetener from the fruits. And so it's really just that's where the art side comes in, and you have to just kind of find your balance. And that's why I really kind of started my, platform and started to kind of really speak about it, because I really want to help people understand about juicing because there's so much mystery around it. But at the same time, kind of help people walk people through the journey of juicing and understanding just your body, essentially. Because one thing, you kind of mentioned it, somebody can start as a juicer when they're, coming from a meat and dairy-based diet. And as your body really begins to get cleaned out from the juices, because you're putting in so much of that highly concentrated nutrition, you become very sensitive to food. And you start to, a lot of people have lactose issues with dairy. A lot of people have issues with the gluten in the grains. And so as your body begins to get more and more cleaned out from the juices, you actually become more and more sensitive to foods. And almost kind of pushes you up the ladder of, let me start eliminating, the meat. Let me start eliminating the dairy. Let me start eliminating the grains. And I definitely got to that point where, like right now I'm kind of moving to the raw vegan because I just couldn't handle the grains, like from the vegan side. And so it's interesting because like the body truly knows what it needs. And I think, that's the beauty of juicing, is that you're kind of tapping back into this Mother Nature's intelligence, and this kind of getting back to the roots of, I think, how how humans lived, long before, modern societies and, kind of these urban jungles that we live in now. It kind of connects us back to the land. It connects us back to, Mother Earth. And I don't want to sound too hippie, but it's just, when we look at what the body truly needs, it's hard to deny that the fact that it really is fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. It's not a lot of this processed food and convenience store food and, food that comes in packages. So, I never try to push my agenda of like, you should be a raw vegan, you should be a vegan when I help people out. I work with people where they're at, and just try to coach them through the process. So I hope that kind of clears a little bit of that up.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I think one of the other, and this is another, it's a tough question, but I'm sure you get this one as well, right? Especially when we talk about veganism, is a lot of people have the question of, well, what about my protein? And what about the kind of carbs that I do need from grains? I think some people who may want to transition to a different diet have a lot of fear around that. And am I getting enough of that? And is there anything you can share around that?
Yeah, yes, certainly. So when it comes to the protein question, I get this a lot. So the greens are really where you're going to find a lot of those amino. So let me take a step back. I always break it down back to the amino acids. So the amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So when we ingest, let's say animal protein, or we ingest plant protein within the body from a biochemical standpoint, the body's got to break that protein down to its more simpler components, which will be the amino acids, which the body can then use to for the neurotransmitters and helping just all those signal communications within the body, secrete hormones and X, Y, and Z. So I know this is always a controversial topic, but I think we've kind of been programmed to really think so much about protein, but not understanding the sources that it comes from, because a lot of times those sources that it comes from comes with a lot of other goodies, I guess you could say. So, the cholesterols, and you're dealing with a lot of the, what are the animals eating and, how they're being fed. But at the end of the day, those amino acids have to get broke down, and the body has to ingest that. So you get the same protein can be gotten from an animal as well as a plant. Because if you look at the animal kingdom, the animals are eating the grass, the animals are eating the herbs, and that's how they're getting their protein. So, from the vegan standpoint, it's like just cut out the middleman and go straight to the source. It's how we look at it. But from a juicing standpoint, you're still getting those amino acids from things like celery, from things like spinach, kale, even like asparagus, you can juice. And so, I look at things from there's a thing called percentage protein, percentage calories per protein. So you're looking at different foods that have very higher percentage of their calories are protein. And so a lot of that would be the greens, the lettuces, the kales, so like a lot of the green juices, the celery, the cucumber, have that higher amount of the amino acids, which help build the muscles and help build the skeletal system. And then from the carb standpoint, there's three different types of carbs. And so sugar kind of gets this bad rep as well, because sugar kind of gets lumped into with like processed sugar and, the industrial sugar. But there's, we have the monosaccharides, and then you have the polysaccharides and the desaccharides. Again, it kind of goes back to the chemistry standpoint of that. When you eat these more complex carbohydrates, they have to be broken down in the body to the simple carbohydrates. So that way that the body can then send those to the cells, and the cells can utilize that nutrition. There's a whole process that goes down when you're breaking down more of the complex carbs into the simple carbs. And so your complex carbs are going to be more your grains, are going to be more your dairy, are going to be more of the even not the vegetables. It'd be more the grains, the dairy, The breads, the starches, the pastas are more your complex grains. And then you have your simple carbohydrates, which would be more the fruits and the vegetables. And the beauty about the fruits and the vegetables is that when the body knows how to immediately break, it doesn't have to really break those ingredients down, because it can immediately strip the nutrition out of those foods. It goes into the cells. It takes the nutrition, and that whole process of ATP starts. But with the grains, there's so much that has to go down, because it has to get broken down back to the simple carbohydrates. And because our society is so heavily dependent upon the complex grains, the body doesn't have enough chance to process those grains fast enough. And so the body has to store a lot of that excess energy as glycogen, which is basically a term for fat. And that's why you see individuals kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger when they're eating more of the complex carbohydrates, because the body just can't process that down fast enough. So I look at the human body as basically like a processing engine, and it's always got a bunch of inputs and a bunch of outputs. And juicing, in my eyes, or if you go to the raw vegan route, it's just the most efficient way of processing the food that we eat. It's a way to streamline everything and not have to go through all this digestive energy and all this time, because the body takes a lot of time to break down certain foods. Fruits break down about 15 minutes to an hour. Vegetables are about 2 hours. And then as you work your way up the chain, the grains are about 4 or 5 hours. The meat's like 8 or 9 hours. The cheese is like 8 or 9 hours as well, almost 12 hours of trying to break that down. So, and I kind of relate that to, when you're eating, let's say you're eating like a big Thanksgiving dinner, and a lot of times people eat that dinner and then they get sluggish. That's the
Almost
easiest way to
immediately.
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the analogy that I always use, that the body has so much to process now, that it has to take away your physical energy and your physical vitality to be able to break down that food. And that's why you get sluggish and you get tired. But whereas with juicing and like eating raw, I never feel that sluggishness. And I can eat like a massive bowl of greens or salad or drink a bunch of juice. And, you don't have that same energy depletion that you would with the food. So that was kind of a long answer. I hope I helped kind of make a little clarity.
That was so informative for me as well. And the question that kind of came up for me is, because I'm always looking to add protein, I'm vegan right now. And so I'm always looking to add more protein to my diet in the most natural form, right? So would you recommend or say that maybe a juice with the right greens would be the way to supplement? Because I never thought of that. And I mean, that's an insight I had, and I was like, oh, wow. So, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so I definitely recommend a green juice. I recommend a daily green juice because of just the amount of nutrition that you're getting from that daily green juice. I would say 1 32-ounce green juice will get you almost about 60 to 70% of your protein needs for that day.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to, take it up a notch, I also, with the whole regenerative detoxification aspect of it, there's herbs as well from nature that have a lot of basically there's 20 amino acids that make up protein. So there's herbs that are within the plant kingdom that have all 20 amino acids. And so I personally don't do it like right now, but when I started, I did. But I always, if you need to go above and beyond to make sure that you always have, those protein needs met, there's herbs like Moringa. I think actually Moringa is pretty native to India and Africa as well. That's a big one that I use basically when I started as a vegan, to always make sure that I had those amino acid needs. There's maca root, there's bee pollen. Those are the big three right now. And so I would always say a green juice. And then if you really need to make sure that you want those extra protein, you could use the herbs as well to make sure that your needs are met.
Phenomenal. Thank you. You solved one of my biggest problems. So that's
yeah.
awesome.
I do kind of want to make one clarification as well, because you kind of brought it up and I don't think I addressed it. So there's two different components of the juicing. There's kind of like the juice fasting, which I think you might have found me, and my channel my platform kind of promotes the fasting, but there's just juicing in general. So you can still juice and eat a meal or eat 2 meals in a day. But then there's kind of people within the juicing community that are a little bit, I say we're crazy, but we like to enjoy just living off of the juice only. And a lot, in the documentary that I mentioned earlier, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, the guy, Joe Cross, went 60 days with just drinking juice, and had all these phenomenal health changes. And so that kind of inspired a lot of people to really start this, let's try a 60-day juice cleanse. And then the more people that I've met, it's kind of, people get crazy with it. But so there's that component of it. I don't recommend that side of juicing to anybody who's new, because your body has to work your way up to that. It took me almost 3 years to get to a point where I could start living off of juice only, because your body really needs to get cleaned out. Your body, it would be a shock to people's system trying to go from a standard American diet all the way to like juice fasting. It wouldn't even be pleasurable. It could almost be dangerous at that point. So, and that's kind of where I coach people and walk people through, kind of like what's the best, path that we want to take in terms of incorporating more of these nutrients into your life. Excuse me.
And I think, again, so important that you mentioned that, because I think part of where that notion comes from is, I think a few years back, the concept of these juice cleansers became very popular. And so,
exactly.
Everybody kind of ran to get their stock from the coolest company, do that for a few days, go back. But people were crashing from it. And, it died down as well, because I think people realized, wait, and so I think that's with this notion that it's got to be this intense fast, it'll cleanse you out, and then you just go back to whatever happens.
Right. Right. And that's where the education comes in. That's why I try to pride myself on helping people understand like why that crash does happen. Because the crash that you did mention, I mean, that's a real aspect of it, is because your body is you're making such a radical change in your diet, and your body is releasing so many old toxins and so many stored up chemicals that we ingest from food, that we breathe in from the air. And your body is trying to eliminate those toxins at a very rapid rate when you start cleansing. And your body can't process it fast enough. Your kidneys and your skin are your biggest elimination organs. And when your body can't get rid of those toxins fast enough, then that's when that blowback happens. That's when the headaches come up. That's when the fatigue sets in. And that necessarily isn't a bad thing, but if you don't understand why that's happening, then people will say, "Oh, doesn't work. This is a hoax." And that's where like the education piece comes in. It's very important to me to help people understand what's actually happening from like a biochemical standpoint.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the word detox actually comes from, because your body's just releasing all this stored toxins and chemicals that are stored, that are kind of stuck in the cells essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've mentioned quite a few already, right? It's kind of, you've spoken about this throughout the discussion, in the sense that the benefits, right? You've spoken about a lot of the benefits already. But yeah, talk to us a little bit more about what juicing can do for us, even on the smaller scale, right? Like you were saying, just adding in that extra juice. What could it do for us, and what exactly is regenerative detoxification?
Okay. So I'll answer the first question first, and then I'll get to the second piece with the regenerative detoxification component. So when it comes to juicing, I look at the big five. I call it the big five. So if you look at most people, and most people are being honest with their health, most people suffer from one of these five issues. The first one's going to be dehydration. The second one's going to be some type of constipation or digestive issues, indigestion, heartburn. The third will be like inflammation. So any type of pain, any type of swelling, arthritis, things just hurting. Things aren't as supple as they used to be when we were younger. The fourth would be fatigue. And the fifth will be just malnourished. So a lot of people don't understand they're malnourished, but a lot of society is with the foods that they're eating currently. And so the beauty of juicing is that juicing addresses all five of those needs. The juicing begins to hydrate the body. So it begins to get the body back into basically an alkaline state. It's getting you that structured water is what we call it from the juicing world, because the plants filter all the minerals from the soil, and it's taking all that taking all that light from the sun, and it's processing a lot of the inorganic materials from the plant kingdom. And so when we get these plants that are delivered to us and we juice them, that water is actually more superior than like the water that we get from like a tap water or just water in general. So they call it H3O or hydrium. So your body is getting hydrated. Your body is starting to feel um, um, what it truly means to have, because we're 75% water, and the brain's 85% water. And so as you get hydrated, then the cells within the GI tract, because that's that's pretty much makes up the human body, is the GI tract. Those cells start to begin to get hydrated, and allows things to move in the colon, because when you're dehydrated, that food gets impacted in your colon, and then we just keep eating, and then we just get stuffed, more stuffed, and we become constipated, or we have the digestive issues, and we have the IBS, and that's what I had. But juicing helped solve that. I don't have any of those issues anymore, and so from a testimonial standpoint, I can I really believe in that. So you get flushed out from a GI standpoint, and then the next piece would be the inflammation. And as your body starts to begin to get that fluid, and it begins to get the nutrition that it really needs, then the body doesn't get inflamed, because inflammation is an immune response to the foods that we're eating that are not the right foods. So when we eat foods that are fried, or when we eat foods that are high in a lot of fat, the body has an immune response to that, because the body doesn't know what to do with that. But the body's always trying to protect you as the human, because those foods aren't meant for the human body. So the body has its own protection mechanism to protect you. And that's kind of where the regenerative detoxification aspect kind of kicks in. I'll dive into that to a little bit. So you start to feel a lot of that pain go away when you start juicing. You feel more flexible. You feel more lumber. You feel more just that vitality that a lot of people are missing. And then the fatigue part comes in, because when the body's dehydrated and the body's in this constant state of thirst, essentially, you're not going to have any energy, because there's no way for the nutrients to move in and out of the cells to create the energy. And so juicing helps fix that aspect. That's why everybody loves coffee, everybody loves the energy drinks, and always trying to find this pick me up. But they're not going to, I believe, is the real source is you need the living food, which is going to hydrate you at a cellular level. And then from the malnutrition standpoint, as we kind of spoke about earlier, is that you're just getting this very highly concentrated form of nutrition in terms of all your vitamins, all your minerals, phytonutrients, there's flavonoids, there's biophotons, you're getting the amino acids for the protein, you're getting fiber. I mean, the list kind of goes on in terms of what the nutrition that comes from that. And so I really believe that juicing can handle all 5 of these pillars. And you speak to people who do the juicing, the kind of the proof's in the pudding. People see how they feel when they do even 3 days of juicing or even a week of juicing. They start to see the benefits of it. And I just do a lot of research as well. And so that will explain the nutrition side of it. And then the regenerative detoxification standpoint is more of like the art and the beauty of understanding that the body has this self-healing mechanism, that if we can eliminate things that the body does not need, get rid of old toxins, get rid of old chemicals that are stored in the tissues from just years of wrong eating, and we start to supplement the body with the juices, with the fruits, with the vegetables, and the last piece would be the herbs, that the body can it can regenerate itself, and you can start to heal a lot of the issues that we think, or that we go to the doctors, to heal, that can actually be healed on your own, and like I said, I had a lot of the IBS issues growing up, and I didn't go to that doctor route. I went through the more natural route. And so it's more getting back in tune with who we are as individuals, and kind of getting back more in tune with nature and kind of these universal laws of life, a way of living. And without going too much in the rabbit hole on that, that's a kind of very high level overview of regenerative detoxification.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, I can tell you that I'm going to be adding a juice to my diet every day from now. And so you have certainly converted me, because understanding all of that, I mean, we know how bad inflammation is, right? It's, right, the beginning point of all disease, right? So
exactly.
That the solutions are almost simple. Like you said, it's a way of life, and returning to that. And I love that.
Exactly.
And yeah. I hear so many parallels with, I've spoken to somebody in Ayurveda, and I've spoken to somebody in holistic nutrition, and the parallels between, again, all of it and what the guidance is about how we need to return to living, and how we nourish our bodies and what we eat. It's all there. So It's there for the
Right.
taking. So that's
Exactly.
amazing.
That's the beauty of it. It's like it's right in front of our eyes. It's just a matter of can you. It's almost like can you kind of wake up and see what is there, you know? And that's really the when you got to get to the other side of it, you start to realize like, wow, I just didn't see it. And that's kind of how I was when I really realized like, okay, like it really is that simple. So it's just a matter of making that conscious decision and sticking with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, I know we're going to do something fun today, and that is
Right.
that you are going to take us through a bit of a juice recipe or a juice demonstration.
Yep. I'll definitely do that.
So, Tom, you have this amazing setup for us. I see the juicer, I see all the amazing greens. Um,
Yep.
so, yeah, I mean, I'm going to start with the machine. That looks
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
cool. What? Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us about. Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the machine real quick. So there's different types of juicers that are in the market. So this is another big question once people actually decide to make the decision to go to juicing. The next question always is, what type of juicer do I get? There's two different types of juicers that are out there. There's one is the centrifugal juicer, and that's more of your vertical juicer, the ones that spin really, really fast, make a lot of noise. Those juicers, they're good to get started with, but if you really want to, they're not the most efficient. They kind of waste a lot of the nutrients. They're not really good at juicing the herbs. There's just a lot of waste that happens when it comes to that juice. And then you have your more masticating juicers, which mimic the human teeth. So it's a much slower process. It kind of grinds the fruits and the vegetables. It breaks the cell wall of the plant, and then it extracts that juice from it and those nutrients. And then it kind of spits out the pulp. And the pulp is much drier, so you're getting more of the actual nutrients. You're getting more of a higher yield with the masticating juicers than you do with the centrifugal juicers. Because if you use a centrifugal juicer, you'll see that like a lot of that pulp is very wet. It's very, and so that's just a lot of waste. So those juices are typically cheaper to get into it, but you end up paying more because you need more produce, you need more fruits and vegetables to get a decent amount of yield. Whereas with this, this is a very simple kind of setup that we have here, but it's still going to produce a high yield because the juicer is just getting so much out of it. And so for somebody like me, where this is truly a lifestyle, this is kind of the really the high end of the juicing machines, just because I really enjoy this lifestyle. But by no means you have to go above and beyond to get some of this price level. But I would definitely recommend that people do go the masticating juicer route. And I can always explain that further if you need me to.
No, that was great. I like the distinction. I've got the other one, the vertical. Yeah,
Okay.
and I didn't know that. So that's really great
Okay.
to know. And I think, if you are juicing often and worth the investment as well, I suppose. So
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely pays for itself off. I've had this for about a year now, and I definitely have, it's been worth its weight in gold. So yeah, it's just a matter of personal preference and where you are in your kind of your transition.
awesome.
So what we have here today, this is my kind of classic green juice that I drink on a daily basis. We have cucumber here. Cucumber is very kind of going back to those the big five that I talked about. It's very hydrating. It helps with the kidneys. It helps clear out a lot of those toxins. Especially for a lot of women, it's great for your skin because there's a silica in cucumber, so it helps with the collagen. It helps really just beautify the skin and just get this glow back to you. Next we have is the lime. So you can usually use lime or lemon. This is just good for the citrus helps with just like moving a lot of that mucus and a lot of that basically the inflammation, because mucus causes the inflammation. So it helps just remove a lot of that stagnant lymph and a lot of those toxins. It helps with cutting fat. It helps with the blood circulation as well. And then next we have here is celery. And so I know there's a lot of hype right now around celery because of Anthony Williams. But celery really is a very beneficial, it technically is a herb because of all the mineral salts that are in the celery. So you're getting a lot of the electrolytes. You're getting, as well as, the amino acids that are coming from the cucumber and the celery. And also the chlorophyll. So that green color that we see from a lot of the fruits and vegetables is actually really beneficial. That's kind of the plant blood of the plant kingdom. But it's really beneficial to the human body in terms of cleaning out the liver and just helping, kind of get things moving. And then lastly, I personally don't use an apple I usually just do the cucumber, the celery, and the lemon or the lime. But for people who are getting into it, I recommend an apple because that will help sweeten the juice. But the apples are very beneficial as well as that. There's a component called malic acid, which just helps a lot with digestion. They say that apple is kind of like the universal fruit. It's very just beneficial in terms of clean out the liver, helping with digest things. Kind of off the top of my head. So that's really the main benefits of this particular green juice. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll kind of just show you how to cut these quick ingredients up and then throw them in the juicer, and we'll kind of enjoy that process. So when it comes to juicing, there's 3 different knives you can use. I try to, for smaller things, I always use like a serrated knife. And then some of like the bigger, when you're juicing watermelon or when you're juicing, pineapples or cantaloupe, I always end up using like a big meat cleaver. One of these kind of bigger boys. Yeah, just to kind of get in there and kind of make things, go a little bit faster. And then you have your basic regular knife as well, just to kind of just get things cut up. So basically what you want to do is you want to cut the fruits and the vegetables just small enough so that way they can fit into the juicer, because right now they can't fit into that chute. So I usually just give it like a quick, just chop down the middle, and then I'll cut it into 4s. So that way it just makes the juicing process much easier. And then same with the limes, just kind of give those a quick chop. And then there's kind of a lot of controversy about the apple and the seeds that are in the apple. They say there's cyanide in the seeds. Personally, it's a very micro amount, and the body has digestive enzymes that can handle that and eliminate it. You'd have to eat like 40 apples to get the poisoning. So I mean, it's a personal choice if you want to actually juice the core of the apple. So I usually I'll cut it up into pieces like that. And so a lot of people, you can either keep this or get rid of it because that has all the seeds. So it's just a personal preference. I don't mind it, but for the sake of things today, I'll get rid of it. So once you do a fine chop, then you can just kind of run everything through the juicer. And so it's a pretty quick process. I usually start with, this is always key. I usually start with the celery. Kind of just throw that in there. I'm just gonna go ahead and juice that. And so it becomes like a very therapeutic type of practice after you do it over a while. I always listen to like an audio book or a podcast while I'm juicing. The plunger is good just to help kind of push things through. But yeah, I don't know. I just find that there's so much just benefit from this.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah, it goes pretty quickly. Especially because celery, you don't have to chop it. And there's teeth kind of like within this that's just grabbing the fruits and the vegetables and kind of basically mimicking what we do from a human standpoint of just chewing that food. And so one thing too to understand is that sometimes for like a lot of people who are new, when you first start juicing and you're kind of coming out of just incorporating more juice to your life, it can have some of those blowback effects. So like sometimes, it does clean you out from like going to the bathroom standpoint. So it's not something that you should be afraid of. I kind of almost said you should embrace it, because you'll get to a point in your juicing journey, where you don't have those symptoms anymore. But that means your body's getting cleaned out. That means your body is getting back to its natural state. So I kind of say just embrace the cleaning process and the detox process. That's just me personally. So you can kind of see this pulp here. It's very dry. It's almost like grass.
Yeah.
So that way you're getting like a higher yield out of it, and that's why I tend to promote the masticating juices. And the other thing too is that as this juice is being everything's being juiced, you now have oxidation that kind of comes into the process. And so you have to drink this juice within 24 to 48 hours. With the centrifugal juicers, you have to drink that juice a little bit faster because that very fast spinning motion has already really accelerated the oxidation of the fruits and vegetables. So you almost have to drink that juice within like almost like 6 to 12 hours. Otherwise, it just starts to lose its nutrition and kind of, the bacteria starts to kind of creep in. So that's kind of another pluses to the masticating juicer, is that it will allow the juices to last a little bit longer.
So you could kind of do a batch for at least 2 days.
Yeah, I would say probably 2 to 3 days would be the best. Yeah.
And Dom, how much? So, one, this is, like I said, this has gone so much more faster than I thought with this machine. I feel like it's gone as quickly as it would on the vertical machine, to be honest, right?
Yeah. So it goes pretty quickly. There's some fruits that are kind of tricky, like carrots are tricky to juice with here. Like you need a lot of just elbow grease. But most everything else is pretty quick. Watermelon's fast, pineapple's fast. A lot of these, like we're almost done basically with this. And this should make about a liter, this recipe.
And how much produce went into that?
So this was 1 stalk of celery. So 1 whole head. This celery looks a little bit different because this is more of they call it leaf celery. It's more popular out here in Europe and Asia, whereas back in America, you don't see the leaves on it. It's more of just so people kind of get confused by that, but it's just 1 stalk of celery, 2 cucumbers, 2 lemons, or 2 limes, excuse me, and then 2 apples. And this should make about a liter of juice.
Awesome. And how long should a liter last? Is that like for 2 or 3 days, or how much should you have in one sitting?
I usually try to drink about like 1 liter within like a probably 2 or 3 hour window. Okay. So if you're eating and juicing throughout the day, one of these throughout like in the morning or something would be fine. And you'll get to a point where like you won't really feel hungry. It's like when I drink the green juices, I can last for a pretty good amount of the day without feeling hungry because your body has the nutrients. And that's kind of the one thing to talk about as well, is that, when we're eating a lot of that processed food and a lot of the, fast food, there's no nutrients in that. So it kind of is the concept of overfed but undernourished. And so you're constantly eating and eating because the body wants to get nutrition, but you're not really getting any nutrition out of that food. So you're getting like full physically, but you're not getting the actual nutrients. So one thing that people see when they start juicing is that you'll drink this juice and you won't really be hungry because your body is getting all these different vitamins and the minerals and the calcium and the magnesium and all that stuff. And so you don't feel this urge to eat where you do as when you're eating a lot of that processed food and a lot of that fast food and stuff like that.
Yeah. And if I had to do my protein juice, what would I change in the recipe you just shared?
So I would keep pretty much everything the same. The only thing I would add to this would be you could add a bunch of kale. So kale, you could add like a head of like a romaine lettuce. But other than that, you can add a little bit of parsley or cilantro. And other than that, that would pretty much be the recipe from the protein standpoint. And that would just give you such a high amount of the amino acids, which are just the building blocks for the protein.
Fantastic.
All right, so that took probably like 10 minutes to do that. Pretty quick.
There we go, everyone. we have the juice ready. That was really quick.
Yeah, so it wasn't too fast. So one thing I do is I like to strain my juices. It's more of a personal thing. I like to just eliminate all the extra foam and any of the extra pulp. I just want to have the juice as smooth as possible. Just to, so it just makes it more of an enjoyable process. I kind of relate to if you like to buy orange juice with pulp or without pulp. It's kind of that analogy of that. So I'll just give it a quick strain real quick. You can kind of see a little bit of, that foam I'm eliminating from that process. And then from there, I just kind of ball it up and
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's that. So that's about a liter. And this is what I really recommend that, no matter what you're eating, if you're eating meat, if you're eating a vegan diet or whatnot, I do recommend, one of these a day. And it will really I think it will really do a lot of just radical changes for your well-being and your health and just moving forward. And you'll start to feel it and, you might get convinced to dive a little deeper. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I did celery juice for a little bit, and I haven't been so good with it, but I really want to go back to, yeah, to I want to give this a shot, and add the
Okay.
kale to it for the protein. So I love it. It was really really helpful, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean I think the one thing I will say and share with everyone is, Dom's got amazing recipes on his Instagram. I know you share really cool recipes. I think one was, what was it? Was it Galia melon? And I
Yeah.
hadn't even
Yeah.
heard of that before. So really like
Yeah.
really cool stuff. And I know you combined watermelon and pear. And so just some amazing, incredible recipes on your Instagram. I know you've got an ebook as well. And then,
Yep.
as you mentioned, you do coach people, because I think that can be so valuable in this journey. I mean, just, you just shared kind of the tip of the iceberg today, and you realize how much there is to all of this. So I think that can
Right.
be really beneficial. But yeah, are there any other resources? Where would you point people to learn more? What do you recommend?
So I would always recommend the documentary that I watched, "Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead." I think that's just can give you some of the inspiration. Joe Cross, he is an individual who's really kind of the pioneer of the modern day juice movement. He has a lot of resources, material, recipe books. He has like a 3 or 4 or 5 day cleanse, I believe. He's a really good source. There's a couple people on Instagram that you can follow, like Johnny Juicer is another one who's been inspiration to me. Um, let's see, from a juicing standpoint, those are probably the big three right now. And then to get a little bit into the regenerative detoxification, that would be Dr. Robert Morris. That's my big mentor that I pretty much learned each and everything from.
Is your ebook recipes? Is that a recipe book?
Yeah, so my ebook will pretty much walk you through, it'll pretty much what this talk is about. It'll kind of talk you the entire process of what is juicing, the history of juicing, the benefits of juicing, and then I'll walk you through each and every aspect of this whole process right here. Like, what tools do you need? The benefits of green juices versus fruit juices. How to go about cutting the different fruits and vegetables. Talking about the different juicers, and then it has about 40 recipes in the back of the book. So it's a really good book for anybody who's a newbie or anybody who is looking just to kind of understand a little bit more about juicing. That book is definitely recommended for anybody in that area. Or if you're a veteran, as like myself, I think there's something that can be learned as well. I'm always dropping information and hints into that.
Incredible. And I will link your website and all your details in the description box, so people can of course find you. But
Okay.
with us right up on time, any other thoughts, anything else you wanted to share today, or anything else you want to cover?
Um, and I think that we're getting into this very unique time, and I think just the world that we're in right now. Obviously, a lot of what we've known is changing, just with the current circumstances. A lot of people are starting to kind of understand that they do have a lot more power than they think. And I think when it comes to health, I think the beauty is that you can take your health into your own hands. Kind of my slogan is you want to become the authority of your own health. And you don't have to necessarily always rely upon the doctors or these different medications to fix your issues. And if you just really become honest with yourself and be articulate what the issue is, there's ways and there's resources out there to help you address it from a natural cause. So that way you get to the root of the problem. Because I think one thing with the allopathic community is that they're treating the symptom. So it's more just suppressing it so you can just continue on your day until the problems arise again. Whereas with this, I was able to heal my IBS, from at its root cause, and it just brings back that vitality. So I just like to challenge people to try to just be honest with themselves and to try to just take control back into their hands, and use the power of the internet, the power of these different communities, the power of podcasts, to find that information, and that way you can regenerate your health, kind of under your own capacity. So that'll be kind of my last words with that.
I love it. Regenerate at your own capacity. That's beautiful. Thank you
Right.
so much, Dom. Thank you for taking the time to walk us through that. I think, again, that'll really show people how easy this can be. And I think you've really
Definitely.
helped to dispel a lot of myths there might be around juicing. So I think if anyone is interested, go and get Dom's ebook. Especially if you enjoyed today, I think you get a sense of the kind of value you're going to get from something from it. So, Dom, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you,
to
Rocky.
everybody who's watching, thank you for watching and listening. I will link all the details below, and I will catch you on our next episode. But thank you for being here. Bye for now.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again. Bye bye.